Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Baker here. Today, we're going to look at the paper clock that was included in your packet on page 19. We're going to talk about a couple parts of the clock, how you can assemble it, and a few things that I've colored to kind of help me, little tricks along the way. And then I'll give you a couple practice problems where I'm going to ask you to show me a time either for o'clock or to the hour or half past or 30. So I'm on page 19 in your packet. To put this clock together, you're going to need scissors and 4 different colors. They can be markers, crayons, highlighters, whatever you can find in your drawer at home, okay? So before you go ahead and cut, let's talk about what we see on the clock. So on this page, there are 3 different things. There's the actual clock, the analog clock, and then below it are 2 arrows. Now, when you look at the arrows down at the bottom, I can really tell that one of them is longer. This one's longer than this one. And that's important because the 2 different hands on the clock tell us 2 totally different things. This longer hand tells us the minute, and the shorter hand tells us the hour. So when we look at the clock, this is an analog clock. And on the inside, these are the numbers that you see on any analog clock, like at school in our classrooms, or, I mean, if your grown-up has a watch that looks like this anymore. It's a lot of digital clocks that we see now. On the outside, that's where the minutes are showing us, and it's showing us in the digital form. So you'll find this on a cell phone. If your grown-up has like an iWatch or a tablet, or even on your computer, you're going to see the digital time with the 2 dots and then 2 numbers under or beside it. In first grade, we are only going to work with the 00, which means of the hour or o'clock, and then straight down from it, the 30. So half past, or whenever someone says 6:30, you're going to point it down here, your minute hand down to where the 30 is, okay? So let me show you how I colored some of the parts on my clock to help me remember those things. So I already cut my clock out. Up at the top for the number 12, I went ahead and colored the 12, any color you want. I used yellow, and I colored the 12 because my minute hand is only going to touch 2 numbers on my clock. It's going to touch this 12 and this 6. So I figured, well, it's gonna help me remember that my minute hand can only touch those 2 colors, those 2 numbers, by coloring them in. And then I also colored the digital minute above it to help me remember that when my minute hand is pointed to the 12, that means that it is o'clock or of the hour. And if we want to, we could even write o'clock maybe between them to help us, okay? O'clock. I then also colored the 6, and whenever I give you a time and it's 30, that means your minute hand's going to point down here to the 6, and that means that 30 minutes have passed, okay? So the other 2 things that I colored were the minute hand. I colored that one green, and I did that for a reason. So I colored both places where the minute hand could be, colored one yellow and one blue. Yellow and blue make green. So this is a way for my brain to know that this minute hand is only going to touch one of these 2 colors that helped make it. And then the longer hand is your minute hand. And an easy way to remember that is the word minute is long. It's a pretty long word. So you need the bigger arrow to write minute out. The word hour is shorter, so it gets the shorter arrow. And I wrote the word hour out too to help me. So if we were at school, we would put this together with a brass fastener. I don't have one of those at my house, and I'm going to guess a lot of you don't have them either, and that's okay. So if you had a brass fastener, you would want to put the hour hand on top of the minute hand, put your fastener right through the circles, and then put it right on top of that other circle. And then you can twist your your hands of the clock without them moving all the time. Since I don't have it, and if you don't have it, that's okay. We're just going to have to move them ourselves. I'm going to try my hardest to keep them where they're supposed to be, but you never know what's going to happen. Okay, so again, before we get started, this minute hand is only ever going to go to the 12. Whenever I say o'clock, it's going to point to the 12, or it's going to point down here to the 6 when I give you a time that has 30 or half past, okay? Half of the clock has gone by. Half of the minutes on our clock have gone by when we point down here. So we're going to start by practicing showing time to the hour. When we show time to the hour, that minute hand is always going to be pointing to the 12. Starts a brand new hour, so 00, o'clock. And then our hour hand is going to point to whatever hour we say it is. So if your hour hand is here, that would be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And it's going to go like that the whole way around the clock. So I would like for you to show me 4 o'clock. Go ahead and use your clock and show me 4 o'clock right now. All right, so to show 4 o'clock, you would have your minute hand over the 12, pointing to the 12, and that hour hand to the 4. Nicely done. Now I would like you to show me 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Good, so for it to be 7 o'clock, that minute hand's gonna stay put because I'm still saying o'clock. This hour hand's going to slide over to the 7, and that is 7 o'clock. How about 9 o'clock? Can you show me 9 o'clock? Good, so the minute hand's going to stay. That hour hand is just going to slide up to the 9. What about 11 o'clock? Can you show me 11 o'clock? Good, slide that hour hand to the 11. What about 12 o'clock? What do you think 12 o'clock would look like? Yeah, absolutely. Both the minute and the hour hand pointing right to the 12. That one's pretty cool. Very good. Now, let's practice some that are half past or 30. So when we do that, this minute hand is going to point down at the 6 or the 30, okay? So one tricky thing whenever we are telling time to the half hour is your hour hand is not going to be pointing directly on a number, okay? What happens is since this minute hand has gone halfway around our clock, the hour hand is going to be pointing right in the middle of 2 numbers. So let's pretend it's 1:30, okay? So if it's 1:30, I'm going to find the number 1 with my hour hand, and I'm going to slide my hour hand then into the middle of the 1 and the 2, okay? That means that it's not 1 o'clock anymore. It's not pointing right at the 1, and it's not quite 2 o'clock or the next hour. We're right in the middle. The minute hand's right in the middle of the whole clock, so the hour hand goes right in the middle of the 2 numbers, okay? Let's do another one together. Let's do 2:30, okay? So again, 30, minute hand is to the 30. That one's not going to move. I'm going to put my hour hand, I said 2 first, so it's going to be on the 2, but it can't be pointing straight to the 2. It's going to go between the 2 and the number that comes right after it. So between the 2 and the 3, that would be 2:30, okay? I want you to go ahead and try to show me 3:30. Good, so for 3:30, the minute hand is still pointing down to the 30. And the hour hand, you can start it at the 3, but since we're halfway through the clock, that hour hand has to go halfway between the 3 and the 4. So 3:30 should look something like that. Let's try a couple more. Can you show me 4:30? Okay, so for 4:30, that minute hand again is staying right in place. Your hour hand is not pointing straight at the 4, even though it's 4:30. It's going to go halfway through those two numbers, the 4 and whatever number comes next, because our minute hand's halfway through the clock. So our hour hand is halfway through the two numbers, halfway through 4 o'clock. 4:30. Very good. What about 6:30? Don't let this one trick you. 6:30. Now, just because we said 6 does not mean that the hour hand stops on the 6. No way, Jose. We have to slide that hour hand so it goes between the 6 and the 7. Okay? How about 9:30? So for 9:30, your minute hand again stays where it's supposed to be, stays on the 30, and you're gonna slide your hour hand, not stopping at the 9, but going between 9 and the number that comes next, 9:30, okay? Now, I'm gonna give you a tricky one, because so far I've noticed that every time that I've said a time, I'm putting my hour hand for the 30 times between the number I say and the number that comes next, like when you count, right? But what happens when it's 12:30, right? Because after the 12, it's not 13. So if I want 12:30, your minute hand, the long hand's on the 30, hour hand is over here on the 12. And even though there's no 13, that's okay. We're starting all over again. So our hour hand's going to go between the 12 and the 1, okay? Between the 12 and the 1. Telling time is pretty fun. It's really important to learn too. So stop back at this video anytime you need a little refresher on how to do it. All right, have fun working through these pages, boys and girls. Thank you for watching.